Hey, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson. And right now, I want to welcome one of my co-hosts back to the show, the one and only Richard Mulliken. Richard, good to have you back, man. I know you've had a lot going on recently. How are things in your world today?
I don't know what day it is. I don't know what week it is. It has been a crazy, insane day. They tell me this earth is moving. It feels like it's moving right now. Um, Dude, it has, and we're just chugging along to the most busy part of the year is Christmas. So it's
Yeah.
only going to get crazier from here. But dude, doing great. Had a great Thanksgiving. Are we still doing that? Had
Yeah,
a
I
great
mean,
Thanksgiving.
we haven't heard from you since Thanksgiving, so we need to know how it went.
Had a great Thanksgiving. Ate a little too much. But other
There you
than
go.
that, man, it was a great time, great time.
Well, that's good, man. We've all you've been on our mind. We know you've had, there's been surgeries, funerals, comedy shows, you name it, and you've had it going on, and still managed to watch this week's episode of USWA and join me and this man, our other co-host for the day. He's our revolving co-host here on Retro Wrestling. It feels like he's the pinch hitter of the Retro Wrestling Review. It's Brian Trammell. BT, how you doing this week?
Pinch hitter. That something. I'm just trying to think of something vulgar with that. I'm doing good, guys. Brother Richard, Brother Gene, you ball-headed weasels. I love you guys, and I'm excited about being here in USWA podcast.
All right. That's a
Retro.
lot of
I'm
enthusiasm for
excited.
a
I'm
Sunday
fired
morning,
up
but we'll take
today.
it.
Fired up
Me,
on a Sunday.
Josh, and Richard are usually dragging for the first half hour of these things. So
Oh man,
you're
I'm
coming in
sorry. I
hot.
got excited. I got
Oh,
excited.
that's fine. Maybe the enthusiasm will be contagious here. But so to get started here, Richard, I know you weren't with us last week. We talked about everything you had going on, and I'm sure with all that happening, you really didn't have a chance to catch last week's show. So let's give you the Reader's Digest version of what you missed on the USWA program last week. Jeff Jarrett used a fan planted in the crowd to trick Brian Christer into signing a contract where it put a stipulation in where Jeff could pick a special referee who turned out to be Jackie Fargo. So you can imagine how that turned out. We got a new unified world champion in the Rocket, Owen Hart, who defeated Papa Shango after Bert Prentice turned on Papa Shango and gave Owen what Corey called a funny, crazy voodoo stick. And Owen proceeded to hit Shango with that crazy, funny voodoo stick, got the win. And then when Jerry Lawler was wrestling referee Paul Neighbors in the main event of that match, main event of that show, Owen Hart hit the ring and kicked the living shit out of the King, left him upside down on the ring steps, just as Jerry had done his own brother Brett a short time before that at the WWF King of the Ring. It's a lot to talk about. But what that brought us, Richard, was the most passionate, heated promo we've seen from Jerry Lawler the entire year of 1993. And then you also missed Bert Prentice being somewhat drop kicked in the calf, I guess it would be, landing him face first in a mud pit. And of course, that drop kick came from an Indian midget, which I don't think we're allowed to say. I think you have to say maybe abbreviated Native American. I don't know what the PC term for that would be.
Native Little American.
Yeah, a little Native Little American. And then we saw New Jack and Homeboy involved in a tag match that sucked an even bigger dick than the one we saw the week before. And on top of all that, we saw the USWA debut of Scotty, not yet too hottie, Scott Taylor, took on Chris Frazier, who completely fucked up the finish. And Scotty had to improvise one on the fly, but he got it done. And that is a summary of what you missed last week. Any questions before we move on to this week's episode?
It sounds like with the surgery and the funeral, I had a better week. So,
Well,
This show was okay last week. I love Owen Hart.
I was going to say, outside of the Owen Hart thing, I don't see anything I've really missed other than the Owen Hart Lawler thing. Now that would have been cool.
And I stated this last week on a podcast. You said you were going to get up after and not be there for the Paul Neighbors Jerry Lawler match. You was going to get up after the Owen Hart match. If you had done that, you would have missed the whole angle. So, golly, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they wouldn't have shown it on TV a few times.
100 times, yeah.
Well, don't discount the entertainment value of an Indian midget getting this high off the floor to drop kick Bert Prentice face first into a mud pit. And Bert running around the studio looking like he had been dipped in diarrhea while what was his name? Chief Lone Eagle. Yeah, Chief Lone Eagle chased him around. It looked like a scene from Jackass with Preston Lacey and Wee Man for the next match. They were running through during the match. All it needed was the Benny Hill music playing in the background. Would have been just a perfect compliment to that. But
onward. Isn't that what he gets for turning his back on a voodoo man?
Yeah, I mean, he's lucky he didn't come out with like a shrunken head or, you know, God knows what could have been the result of that. You don't turn on the freaking voodoo man.
You miss Miss Texas saying, "Fat boy, fat boy." You missed that too. So.
I heard a lot of lunch ladies say that to me in my years, so I did not miss that.
What do you want, fat boy? I want double.
Fat boy.
There you go. Just you wanted to hear what that sounded like. That is Miss Texas. When I called her on the phone last week and said, "Hey, are you familiar with Brian Trammell?" And that's said, and so no, just kidding. That was in reference to me actually. But anyway, this week we are going to revisit Saturday, July the 3rd, 1993. And guys, I don't know if you realize this, and what is our 30th episode of the Retro Wrestling Review. 30 weeks we've been keeping up this nonsense, and we appreciate everybody that's been following along, that's been joining us. Now nearly 9,200 people that are following us on our Facebook page. All our new patrons. We actually read a message on here last week, Richard, from our German friend from Patreon that we've talked about. He sent in something concerning Jerry Lawler from Jerry Jarrett's book, where Jerry Jarrett referenced in court Jerry Lawler's disinterest in wrestling as it compares to softball. So that was fun. But anyway, episode 30, here we go. You know, last week, Richard, once again, one of your days off coincided with Corey Maclin not being on the show. I'm starting to think that's by design. Do you care to confirm or deny that you and your old boss are taking the same days off here, or is that just purely coincidence?
A little bit of both.
There you go.
You know, sometimes I'll just say, you know, I'm not watching it if Corey's not there. And
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want to say the same thing. When I see Corey's not there, I'm just like, can we skip this one? You know, I know I'm not going to have as much fun when Corey, or as Eddie Marlin says, Curry, when Curry's not going to be here.
Which is funny because I'm used to being booked when Corey wasn't there.
Yeah, it's kind of true. It is kind of backwards from what real life was like, right?
Right.
It had to be kind of like a flashback to like back in school where you're getting picked for teams, you know, and Corey's like, "Hey, we'll take that one, not you, that one, and that one." And well, Richard, your partner's not here, so you're not going to get in there today.
Yeah,
we don't want to dredge up any bad memories for Richard before we get this show going. So let's move past that quickly. This week's show opens with Lawler, Corey Maclin, and Eddie Marlin standing outside somewhere next to a Chevy Camaro from Gwatney Chevrolet in there that will be up for grabs in a tournament this Monday night. And Lawler announces since he's a spokesman for Gwatney Chevrolet, he can't be in the tournament, so we don't have an obvious winner right out of the gate, so that makes it a little more fun, right? He also mentions there's going to be 2 rings set up Monday night, and there will be 2 tournament matches going on at one time. Now, when I first heard this, I was like, what the hell? But then when I looked at the results for this week, with a 16-man tournament and then other matches that they're booking, that meant this Monday night we had a total of 19 matches on the card. So I understand why we had to have 2 matches going.
As soon as they said that, all I could say was clusterfuck. I was there's so much shit going on in 2 rings at one time. Just this is going. And answer the question, no, I wouldn't have paid to go see that bullshit.
What fuck? Don't blow the goddamn spot before you do the show.
He's got shit to do, Gene.
My bad. I got shit to do. I got to send my recliner, bitch.
Do it. You don't kill the gimmick, you asshole. Jesus. Oh, this ain't stspod.club over here. We do things properly. God damn it.
Shit.
So then Eddie Marlin plugs $2 tickets for kids. Lawler shills his fireworks. They're going to give away a ginormous poster of Jerry Lawler Monday night. I think you might would have drawn more people if you gave away a ginormous poster of Miss Simpson, but that's just me. And then Corey reminds us that this is going to be called the 4th of July Spectaculah in there. I love the way Corey says Spectaculah, which I like the way Corey says a lot of things, but that one's fun in particular. And then we go to the studio and we realize that this week Dave Brown's off. So clearly Dave and Corey are mirroring the schedule of Richard and Josh. They're just rotating in and out the way Josh and Richard are. Again, there's no way this can be coincidence, but we'll go with Richard's answer. Just a little bit of both. But anyway, Corey immediately pitches to a clip of Jeff Jarrett winning the Southern Heavyweight title with special referee Jackie Fargo. Do you want to spoil this one too, BT, and tell us that Jackie didn't count 4 in this one, or do you want us to watch the clip right
he
here?
didn't count. He didn't count 4.
All right, so let's check out this clip real quick. Jeff Jarrett, Brian Christopher for the Southern Heavyweight title. Special referee
Jeff won.
Jackie Fargo.
To participate in the big night coming up Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum, a big 4th of July Spectacular. Last Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum, it was a Southern Heavyweight title bout involving Jeff Jarrett and Brian Christopher. Jeff had his hair on the line. Take a look at what happened. Reversal. Jarrett whips him in. Christopher comes off. And he slingshots him off that top rope. Backs him into the rope. Rolls him up. He got him. Yes, Corey. 1, 2, 3. And 17 minutes, 47 seconds. Jeff Jarrett, your winner, and the Southern Heavyweight Champion. Oh, yeah. And Jarrett, the USWA Southern Heavyweight Champion. Oh boy, look at this though. Jackie Fargo went to get out of the ring and Christopher grabs him out. Oh, and he nails Fargo. Oh, look at the fabulous one. Ho, ho, ho. Jackie Fargo comes off the rope. Punches Christopher.
Now, I mostly want to show that clip for 2 reasons. One, I don't know if you guys caught this. I didn't the first time I saw it. But when Jeff is standing up on the ropes to hold the belt up over his head, Corey Maclin actually announces over the PA, "Whoop, there is Jeff Jarrett, the new Southern Heavyweight Champion in there," which was fun. And then the crowd in kind chanted, "Whoop, there it is," as Jeff is standing there with the championship. And secondly, I wanted to show where Brian slugs Jackie Fargo. Jackie hits the ropes and drops Brian Christopher and then hits the famous Fargo strut. Now, can you imagine if you had moved to Memphis from somewhere else and you have no context or clue who Jackie Fargo is, what you're thinking to see this old man lay out the young former champion and then go into a strut that more resembles some sort of full body convulsion or some sort of illness or disability even. What would you be thinking if you weren't a Memphis, if you're a native, and you just see this happening?
You know what's funny about all of that was we were at an OVW show, and I want to say it was in like 2000. So what, 7 years after this, and we watched Derek King give himself an atomic drop from Jackie Fargo. Like I don't like when he picked him up, I was like, this old man's gonna fold under himself. Because he looked way like older 7 years later. But watching that clip back, I was like, Lance Russell never did that, did he? He never went, "Who put the bop in the bop shwap shwap? Your winner, Jerry the King Lawler." Like, why are we throwing out random songs just because they're over? I feel like if Corey wasn't of an African American descent, that would be cultural appropriation this day and age. If even Lance did that, could you imagine Lance doing that? "Whoop, there it is, your winner."
Ah, boy, whoop, there it is, guys. Jerry Lawler. I mean, Jeff Jarrett. I'm just so used to saying Jerry Lawler.
Right.
BT, what'd you think about
You didn't
Jackie?
get a number on that crowd. That was a hell of a crowd.
Yeah, we didn't have a specific number for that crowd, unfortunately.
And
we
then,
do have one for this week, but I'm not going to spoil it by telling it at the beginning of the show.
Oh, shit.
BT watches his adult movies in rewind. Likes to get
BT's
to
gonna
that.
start start looking up the crowd so he can tell it in the first 5 minutes. Hey, welcome to the show. Hey, Gene, you remember that there was so and so amount of people there last week? I'm like, fuck it,
Man, that crowd was nutty, man. All you had to do is just start some chant on the microphone like Corey did, and they were going crazy. So, good pop for the win. You know, me being a wrestling fan, I thought Jackie's punch looked good, and I had no problem with the strut.
Yeah,
so.
now the strut the strut's more what I was making fun of. Now, as far as Jackie going back, hitting the ropes and coming off of that punch, it looked good. It was reminiscent of what we saw out of Paul Neighbors a couple of weeks ago when he leveled Jerry Lawler, and probably the most believable punch I've seen on a Memphis show this year, honestly. I was quite impressed with it.
Here's my question. You know, we just came through Thanksgiving. How many people had a drunk uncle that looked exactly like Jackie Fargo do the exact same thing last week? Just bounced off of a shed and just decked their other uncle and just ruined things.
I hate to ruin something, but we got a video with Jackie Fargo coming up, and talk about drunk uncle. Oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, we're leading into that right now. But first, before we get there, back in the studio, Brian Christopher comes storming out. He's pissed that he no longer holds the USWA Southern Heavyweight Dinner Platter. And he cuts a promo about it. Then he gets in the ring. First match of the day, Brian Christopher versus Ash Masters, one of our favorite names of the show here, alongside Mr. Clyde. And Brian beats the holy hell out of Masters in this one to really drive home his displeasure for no longer being Southern champion. And in all seriousness, guys, Brian was in rare form here. He really made me believe that he is just, as my old coach used to say, pissed off to the fare thee well that he's no longer champion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. There was some real licks in that one.
Yes.
Yes, it looked. I was like, man, do I fast forward or what's going on here? And Ash Masters, I mean, that sounds like speaking of porn, that sounds like one of those porns I rented, Ash Masters. So,
yeah, I would assume so. That would have left someone you mentioned earlier on your stomach. But anyway,
it definitely sounds like he's a chimney cleaning service.
An Ash Master. Yeah,
if there's a problem with your chimney, call Ash Masters in there. They'll get
Whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is.
Or a crematorium. Or a crematorium,
yeah. I'll do both, you know. Have a little bit of range.
He's the master of ash, whether it be human or soot from wood.
Whether you're making it, getting rid of it, he can handle all your ash handling needs, if you will, in there. So what comes next? And we're just gonna have to hear a clip of this. I mentioned last week I was disappointed we didn't get one of those classic Jackie Fargo promos from that ugly couch. Well, this week we got one of those promos, but sadly, RIP to the ugly couch. Jackie has now gotten a new couch, and he's sitting on it with Jeff Jarrett. But be forewarned, things get pretty emotional. This one's a tearjerker here, guys. Uncle Jackie talking to little Jeffrey, his son, he says. Well, check this out.
Now, kid, I know you'd rather be somewhere else than right here, but I got a lot to tell. I know I ain't gonna have all the time in the world to tell it, and I know you've been asking me why I wanted you to talk to you, but you're my buddy. You know, being buddies and having a buddy is the hardest thing in the world, having a good buddy. But me and your daddy, boy, listen. We were the best friends in the whole world. When we were your age, there was no better buddies in the whole world. I never will forget the day you was born. Like I said, your dad was my friend, so you really felt like we had a boy instead of just him. So I goo-gooed you and bounced you on my knee like all Uncle Fargo. Had a ball with you. Listen, you was the best little old kid. You was walking and you was 8 or 9 months old, goo-gooing, and I'd walk in, I'd pull my hair down, you'd grab it, I'd lift you up off the floor with my, And I said, boy, he's going to be a good boy. I really, I got, every day got to want to see you. Me and your dad was flying to Chicago and going to Little Rock and New York and Louisville and Lexington, and I'd come by there and here you'd come. I want to see Fargo. I want to see Fargo. Do Fargo strut for me. And yeah, I'd get you to do it. I said, every time I come here, he's out there shooting the basketball. Raining. I think I'll live forever. I don't know. I really feel I will, but I'd like to look back and see somebody that I loved and say, Stan and Steve, they didn't, I made them fabulous, but Joe and Mike, But as I get older and move closer and nearer out of the wrestling business, I want you. I want my son. When I look in the ring and see you, I want to look and see. There's Jackie Fargo. I want you to act. I want you to strut. I want you to do everything. You've got what it takes. The old Uncle Fargo, and like I said, ain't gonna be around forever, but I'll always want to look. And I promise you, there won't ever be another fabulous one, just you and I. I'm gonna talk to I know you do some things in other towns, and I'd love for you to be the fabulous Jeff Jarrett.
Jackie, I really don't know what to say. You don't know how this makes me feel. You've told the people that I grew up, I never knew there wasn't a Jackie Fargo. I grew up knowing you from seeing you over at the house, from sitting on the front row, thinking you were the greatest thing. You are the greatest thing. I mean, there's only one Jackie Fargo, there's only one Fargo strut, and I just don't think I can live up. Because in my mind, there's just one fabulous one.
No, there's two now. Me and you, Pally.
Oh, God.
Can you say Pally?
I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say something. I hope I hadn't bored you. I had a story to tell. I had to tell it. This is a great kid. Jeff Jarrett. The fabulous Jeff Jarrett.
You got it, Pally.
The fabulous Jeff Jarrett. Always, often imitated, but never duplicated.
For those of you looking at your watch, that was officially the single longest clip we have ever aired.
And
on
they
this
cut
show.
it. Did you see they cut
And
it?
I did cut it.
Well,
I
they
did
cut it.
little-
Too. There was a time where he was just rambling on, and they went to another. Was he drinking, y'all? That's what
I just thought it was funny because my first takeaway when I saw this was, I don't think that man's wearing pants. Like, I think he is just sitting bare-assed on that couch. And then he keeps saying things to Jeff that make Jeff sound like he wasn't the smartest kid growing up, because there's
And
one
you say
part in,
Pally?
yeah.
it was so cringy. Oh, it was so bad.
And there was one part in there, he looks and he goes, Jeff always used to come around, won't play bad ball, won't play bad ball. I was like, and then they show the most unflattering picture of Jeff Jarrett. Like, I think it was his internal thoughts. Like, as he's
Over
sitting
and
there
over.
listening to him, he's like, I want you to be the fabulous one. And they show a picture of Jeff going,
Yeah. And they just kept cutting to it. Like, which,
Yeah.
I mean, at least they didn't use that poster of Jarrett that they used to advertise on TV as their cutaway picture. But And let me spoil this before BT gets a chance
Oh,
to.
shit.
At one point, Jackie says he thinks he's going to live forever.
He didn't. No, he
didn't.
Unfortunately. Which is a shame because I would love for Dustin to be able to run promos like this today where, you know, take your pick of somebody on their show would be yet the newest fabulous one.
Did they ever refer to Jeff as the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett?
Yes. Fuck, you don't remember that?
I
Oh,
don't
get
remember
ready, son.
that.
Get ready. He's about to be the fabulous Jeff Jarrett, the fabulous one Jeff Jarrett. He's going to be strutting. All this is fixing to kick in. So
he
yeah,
actually started. Oh, I'm sorry, Gene.
Oh, go ahead.
He actually starts strutting more than anyone on the face of this earth have ever strutted before, because we're only a couple of months away from him being Double J.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid going, this motherfucker struts all the time. Like, I'm sick of it. Like, I hated Jeff Jarrett just because he strutted all the time.
So we feign all this emotion here because, you know, Jeff becomes the sixth person that Jackie Fargo has officially drafted to be a fabulous one. You know, the final one apparently. But come on, I mean, he's Steve and Stan and Eddie and Tommy and who knows who else. Who was Joe and Mikey referred to there?
I don't know.
That's the Road Warriors' real names that he said, but I don't remember them being fabulous ones. Wouldn't that have been a sight?
Go back. He's that drunk uncle on Thanksgiving talking about things he wants to do, and they took it serious. So there you go.
But it was something. But yeah, so yeah, we're about to. So according to the dirt sheets that I studied this week, this fabulous one thing is something that they were intending on using for quite a while, and they were trying to figure out where to shoehorn it in and what would be Jackie's excuse to come on here and do this. And they finally plugged it in last week with this whole make Jackie the referee, and here we are. But they've been wanting to do this for a couple of months. And back to when they did that music video that we had so much fun with, where he, you know, reenacted the Too Cold Scorpio basketball video and rocket ships sailing off to the moon and all the shit, which is still one of my favorite things we've seen this year. But anyway, let's move past that because we dedicated a lot of time to that. So, of course, after a Jeff Jarrett match clip and a 7-minute Jackie Fargo and Jeff Jarrett promo, what could you possibly follow that with, guys? You guessed it, another Jeff Jarrett promo. And so I've got a clip of this entire promo I'm going to show right now. No, I'm kidding. sort of see BT's head explode there. So Jeff has his suit and his sunglasses on. If you're watching the video on YouTube, check him out there, looking very much like Ashley Schaefer from Ashley Schaefer BMW.
All I thought.
That's all I can think that whole promo.
God.
That
plums.
That and Timu Ric Flair. That's all I could think of. I was like, he is Timu Ric Flair.
Monday night, give me powers when you come to the Mid-South Coliseum. But so anyway, there's a whole bunch of back and forth. We're not even going to rehash this whole thing, and we sure as hell ain't showing a clip. But what it is it's Jeff going back and forth with Tony Falk and another one of these title shots versus hair. And BT, you can go ahead and spoil it. It's the title versus Tony Falk's father's hair is what we end up with by the time we're done here.
Yeah, but but we got Jeff's hair up. I didn't understand it. Why did Jeff have to put his hair up?
I didn't even realize he put his hair up. I just thought it was just a title shot versus
hair
Tony
versus
Falk's
hair.
father's
He
hair.
put his hair up too.
It doesn't make a shit.
None of it
Everybody
made
knows
any
he's not.
sense. Before you stop blasting my friend Jeff Jarrett, he did email us back to let us know that he don't even remember who the autograph guy was. So there you go. I'm supposed to send him some pictures so that he can see the little angle. He said he liked my memory. Yeah, whatever. My memories.
We just watched this, Jeff. Calm down. We're not blasting Jeff Jarrett. We've been some of the biggest supporters of Jeff Jarrett on this show of any podcast out there. Most people just take a steaming shit on Jeff, but man, it was the most Memphis thing in the world, right? You know, somebody's dad's hair on a bald-headed guy who just got his head shaved now putting his dad's hair on. Like, you don't see this anywhere else. Like, it was never like, Terry Funk's dad's hair versus Ric Flair's title. It was never
Ric Flair's hair.
Elizabeth's hair against Macho, against, $1 million belt or any kind of shit like that. Only in Memphis do you see this kind of stuff. What did you guys think of this segment?
I thought it was just overkill.
Way
to be
too long.
honest.
Yeah.
I mean, they come out of half nude Jackie Fargo to this, and it was just like, come on, can we get a match in the ring first? At least, just to break it up a little bit. Like, just a little too much Jeff talking. Or, centered around Jeff. Let's throw another angle in there and then get back to Jeff. That was my only gripe.
We've talked about that a lot on this show, how they don't split up their segments good enough, or it's just like you get hammered with Jeff, and then we move on to other things, or Brian, whatever the case may be. And it would work out so much better if they would stagger it, like you said, put a match in, then do the second. But fuck, we get a match clip, we get a never-ending Jackie Fargo bottomless promo, and then we go right into the Jeff Jarrett promo.
Yeah, they need to stagger it like a comic book,
Yeah.
You see what Wolverine's doing, and then they cut to what Cyclops is doing, and then back to Wolverine. Instead we're getting it like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. It's like
yes, I have actually.
Yeah. You get all these little mini movies in it, and that's kind of like how Memphis was booking it. It was like you get a mini movie. If you don't tune in until 11:30, well, you've missed all of Brian Christopher's stuff.
Yeah. And it's like they all had somewhere to be. It's like, we got to get all your shit in so you can leave and go work at the mall or whatever it is you do when you're not, wrestling on TV for free. But Brian, how did you feel about this before we move on?
Yeah, I just hated it. It lasted way too long. And like I said, it ended up with Jeff putting his hair on the line. And I don't know, none of it made any sense to me. If you just came out there and just did a promo and said, I'll put hair on the line. If I win, then I get the whole thing with you. I can't give him a title match. It goes back to that's wrestling logic that makes no sense whatsoever.
I feel like that was done, because they think, all right, well, wrestling fans are going to think, well, Tony's a jobber, lost a million matches in a row. So let's do this to justify. But I find it weird the moments that they actually do try to apply logic. There's so many other times that we're able to pick holes in their thinking, where this is a time where, like, all right, I get why you're doing it, but it's so unnecessary. We're wasting so much time. Nobody gives a shit. Jarrett wrestled Tony Falk 2 weeks ago. Okay, he's going to wrestle him again. And this time the dad's hair on the line. Move on. I feel bad because this week's show feels kind of lopsided because we don't have Josh here to say he loved this. Normally when all us cynical, wrestling guys are shitting on something, Josh, well, like, I hated it. Well, I hated it too. It was gay. It was blah, blah. And all of a sudden, Josh is like, well, I fucking loved it. This was great.
It reminded me of having a Little Debbie cake and having my white tidy whities with the Kool-Aid stain on, sitting in my grandmother's living room watching this and just going, this is the best life gets.
And then my uncle would come in drunk in his underwear, put his arm around me and talk about when I couldn't pronounce the word basketball. And it made me feel warm and fuzzy and a little uncomfortable. No, but I mean, yeah, exactly. That's the balance that Josh brings to the show that I'm afraid we're going to be missing it this week, folks, but just bear with us.
He had to go on that gay cruise, so.
Kayfabe.
To the Poconos. Was it to the Poconos?
It was.
The Poconos or something.
Poconos, Poca rear, something like that. I don't remember.
Bears in the Poconos. I don't get that. Bears.
So we take a commercial break, and we return with Principal C.W. Bergstrom telling Corey about his straight A student, and he then introduces us to Melvin Penrod Jr. So let's take a look here at the introduction of Melvin Penrod Jr.
Corey, excuse me here. Corey, I've been in the education system a long time, and I've seen a lot of students. But I'll tell you what, my perfect A student is definitely in a class all by himself. This student not only didn't participate in sports, it's not that he couldn't, but I'll tell you what, he was in study hall studying. He was building his mind, not his body. In fact, this student was a student that all the jocks came to make sure that they could pass their classes. I'll tell you what, I can't say enough about this student. He's the only perfect student I ever had. And I'll tell you what, right now, I'd like to introduce you to Melvin Penrod Jr.
This is the A student. There he is. Melvin Penrod Jr., Principal C.W. Bergstrom's A student. Oh, boy. Come on.
That is, Melvin. That is. Go ahead and laugh. Go ahead and laugh. Because you don't have half of what this man has in his head. I tell you what. Those jocks used to pick on Melvin, used to beat him up, used to make fun of him. But Melvin never did anything wrong. As usual, he was perfect. And I'll tell you what, Melvin. I'll tell you what. This apple that you brought me today, if you do exactly what I taught you, I'll give you this apple as a treat. And right now, we're fixing to take these two boys to school.
All right, so there you get a look at Melvin Penrod Jr. And before we see Melvin in the ring in action, and before I tell you a bit about what I learned about him this week, what are you guys' initial thoughts from this promo?
Young Peter Griffin.
Okay.
It was
That's
weird, man. It was weird. Like, are we trying to make Bergstrom a comedy character now, or is he serious? Like, to me, he's been coming out there trying to paddle people for 2 weeks, and now he's coming out there with a student that it's honestly supposed to be a comedy character. He wouldn't be dressed like that. That costume was meant to get laughs from the audience. I mean, I don't know. It just seemed a little out of character. But I mean, at least they're trying something to spark interest, I guess, because how many times have we said the Bergstrom stuff was our least favorite stuff? So maybe they're trying to add.
It's been dead in the water since he got here.
Yeah.
What's your take, BT?
I love it. Absolutely love this. That's one of the things. I was reading the Observer at the time, but not actually watching wrestling. I remember going out of my way to try to get a tape of this. I love this guy. I love the whole gimmick. I love that he looks like this big fat nerd. And I mean, I popped for a couple of his moves. He's just a big guy doing moves. This is one of those things where they're getting it ready for the WWE, but it doesn't end up going there. CW, I got something from Brano Lasto. He's one of our Patreon members, and he listens to this. And he said that Bergstrom was being groomed to do a feud with Sean Waltman. And Sean refused to work with him because Bergstrom was he did a show in Minnesota. Waltman used to work for a Minnesota promoter up there, Ray Webby, and CW was a prick or something, and he refused to work with him in the WWE. So that might be the reason the CW didn't go. But, man, I love this character. I absolutely love it.
But, yeah, so we've talked about on the show how the Bergstrom character was intended by, WWF to eventually come and feud with the Kid. We hadn't confirmed that, so this guy was able to confirm that at least. To Richard's point, no, I don't think they had exactly booked the Bergstrom character like a comedy character, but I think somebody was smart enough to come along and go, guys, it's a wrestling high school principal. This is a joke. Like we got to make it entertaining. So what we're doing with Jeff Gaylord is not entertaining. So I think this was a step in the right direction. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment, but first let's see, like you say, Richard, he comes out, you look at him, he's dressed like a nerd, all this, you're like, straight comedy character. I'm thinking when I first saw this back in 93, I'm like, all right, well, they've got some guy that looks the part. He's probably going to get in the ring and be absolutely horrid like most of these gimmicks that they bring in. But I don't know, man. I was a little bit surprised when I saw this.
Melvin Penrod Jr. head to the ring, and boy. Penrod Jr. climbs on the ring apron there. There he is. All 400 pounds of him is his weight. Referee Frank Morrell calls for the bell, and we're ready to see Principal C.W. Bergstrom and his new addition, his only A student, he said, who is Melvin Penrod Jr. Here's Bert Prentice. Prentice, what in the world are you doing out here?
I love this.
You love what?
We finally have a superior athlete here in the USWA.
Look at this guy. Penrod Jr. bags up Ricky Hutchings. Slams Hutchins into the turnbuckle and a big splash. By the way, you're not invited out here, Prentice.
He's great.
No,
Melvin Penrod is great. Melvin, you're going to do great. All right. A broken rib.
Melvin Penrod Jr., the A student of Principal C.W. Bergstrom, is into the ring, and C.W. Bergstrom says he's got a big apple for a treat for Penrod when this bout's over.
Did you see that? Look how agile this guy is. He could have been a great basketball player. Kind of like Charles Barkley. He's great.
What an elbow from Penrod.
He could have lettered in every sport in high school. This is a natural athlete. Come on, Melvin. Come on, Melvin. Yeah, kick him, Melvin.
Penrod Jr. weighing in at 400 pounds in the USWA. Even out with his partner and former principal, Bergstrom, flips Hutchins over. Oh, boy.
Melvin is great.
Oh, boy.
Did you see that? 400 pounds of Melvin Penrod. The man is phenomenal. Where has C.W. Bergstrom been hiding him?
Yeah, well, what I don't like about it, Prentice, is they had opportunity several times.
This is the team of the future. Look at this.
Boy, he slammed Ricky Hutchins down. Tagged Melvin Penrod Jr. Big body slam on Hutchins again. Here comes Penrod. All 400 pounds jumps it down on Hutchins. 1, 2, 3. And Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. gets the win.
What a great, exciting match here today. You know what, Corey? These two need a manager.
Oh,
These
yeah,
two
right.
need a manager.
That's why you've been out here.
Yeah, I'm going to have a little talk with them.
Yeah, I do get it. Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Penrod Jr. the apple, and that's his streak for the work he done in the ring as Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. get the win over the Hutchins brothers.
All right, so there you have it. Bert Prentice loves Melvin Penrod. The spoiler, Brian Trammell loves Melvin Penrod. I find that they seem to both enjoy the same things in a lot of cases. I don't know if it's across the board.
Yes, we do.
The thing I found interesting about this, I remember watching it back then and then rewatching it now, is him getting in the ring kind of raises more questions than it does answers, because he comes out and you see this guy and like, oh, okay, he's this nerd and all this. But then he gets in the ring, he's throwing, like, he's heavy hitter. He didn't look bad in the ring. So it's like, all right, so is the gimmick going to end up being that this, nerd thing's just a misdirection and he's actually this dangerous wrestler? Or is it just we're playing it up as he's using all this frustration of all the years of being picked on and he's taking out on people in the ring? What are we doing with it? But I was pleasantly surprised once he got into the ring. He wasn't what I expected. Was he what you guys expected?
No, it wasn't what I was expecting. I will say that if his plan to get into the ring that awkwardly, if that was his plan, that is genius, because that looked great.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like it was his plan. Like, I didn't know it was holding on more. His knee pads were like stretched to the limit, or him trying to get in that ring. What was the more stretch? But everything about this was like, oh, he's going to be horrible. And then he comes out looking like, he's a world ender,
Yeah.
So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with his abilities in the ring.
Big fan,
Right.
big fan. Yeah. I thought he looked good in the ring and the punches were good. Really, I don't know. I just love this gimmick.
All right, so I have some insight about the straight A student, but we're going to take our first podcast commercial break. And when we come back, I'll tell you a little bit of what I learned this week about Mr. Penrod Jr.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
All right, so, I try to do research of when new characters pop up on the show and try to have some insight for the listeners and viewers of the show. And so I got online, I started trying to find some info about Melvin Penrod Jr. and I came up with a bunch of nothing. And so I was frustrated because I never got anywhere researching Bo Alexander. We couldn't find out who the freaking plant in the crowd was last week. And I was like, damn it, I'm finding something out about this dude. I'm tired of looking like a dipshit on this podcast, not having any information. So I got to doing some research on Facebook, and I tracked down Melvin Penrod on Facebook and added him as a friend, and he added me back pretty quickly. I sent him a message, and I initially asked him to do a podcast interview, to which he politely declined, which I understood. He's moved on from wrestling, and he's doing other things now and doing well from what I can tell. And so I messaged him back and said, hey, man, I get that. I respect it. I was like, but is there any way I could just ask you a few questions? Because there's just not a lot of information about you out there. So he did offer to have a phone conversation with me. He just didn't want to appear on a podcast. So me and him had a nice conversation on the phone. Super nice guy. He answered all my questions. We had a great conversation about his time in wrestling and specifically his time in the USWA. So here's a little background of what I learned about Melvin as far as everything up to this point. Now, I learned a lot of other stuff, but, unlike the spoiler over here, I'll unveil that as the time comes. I won't tell it all to you here up front. But his dad was a huge wrestling fan. He grew up going to the matches in Evansville, Indiana at the Coliseum. He actually started wrestling at age 14. He was trained by a legit amateur wrestler, and then he got a little bit of training in the ring. Took to bumping pretty quickly, and he was working matches within 3 months of starting his training. He started wrestling under the name Jeff Hart, which in no way was associated with the legendary $5 wrestler Jeff Hart. He's my buddy I used to work with for High Spots. He would eventually go on to wrestle as Avalanche, and then he took on a Japanese gimmick with a mask called the Great Tsunami. And along the way, he worked with and became friends with Madman Pondo. And Pondo would work for the Jarretts from time to time on spot shows. And I think he did a couple of TV matches in 92. I know I got a match somewhere on Facebook of him wrestling Jeff Jarrett. So Jeff asked Pondo if he knew of any big guys who could actually work. And Pondo suggested his buddy Avalanche. So at this time, Avalanche is 22 years old. He's been doing independent shows in Indiana, Illinois, and that whole general area for about 8 years or so. So they got booked for a tryout match. It was Avalanche and Pondo against a couple of guys they brought with them. And the match went well. And Jeff offered him a job right there on the spot and took him in the back. And Jeff laid out the whole idea for the nerd character and told him that they would pair him up with Principal C.W. Bergstrom. And Jeff pitched a name for the character, and Avalanche pitched a counter name and said, well, what about the name Melvin Penrod Jr.? And Jeff goes, oh, my God, that's perfect. How did you come up with that so quick? And he handed Jeff his driver's license, which said Melvin Penrod Jr. Turns out that is his given name. It's not the name he goes by. It's not the name his friends know him by. But it is his legal birth name. And so Jeff said, that's perfect. You're Melvin Penrod Jr. So that's who the gimmick was. And they came up with the look and everything. Man, just a super nice guy. I learned a lot about him from this conversation. Like I said, I'll be sharing that with you over the course of his run here in the USWA over the next few months. But I really appreciate him taking the time to talk to me and give us a little insight about his background. And it's funny though, one of the first things he said, we asked you guys what you guys thought of the gimmick. Brian said, I loved it. I asked him, I said, well, when they pitched the idea to you, the nerd gimmick, what did you think? He goes, oh, I hated it. I hated it the whole fucking time. He goes, I got it, but I hated it. Yeah. But I said, well, to your credit, man, you played it up perfectly. And like I said, we talked a lot about the things that BT alluded to that this will lead to later. And he had a lot of interesting insight to what he used to get into that. But we're not going to talk about that here. We'll talk about it when we get there. So there you go. That's my research paid off this time. And I learned a lot about Melvin Penrod Jr. And I think he's a great character. And honestly, I thought the principal gimmick was completely dead in the water, that there was no hope for it. Having this character to play off of brought new life to it. It gave kind of a purpose to the whole principal thing, because him feuding with Jeff Gaylord, it was just over the paddle, didn't really work for me. Having samples out there was like having two of the same guy promos together. Really, it was one was the same as the other. So there's such a contrast between the two, and then there's that student principal the dynamic, and the apple bit I think is pretty fun. That's his treat for winning the matches and all that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out with these guys. Any final thoughts on any of that before we move on?
It's definitely spiced up the character a bit, because now instead of it's given us something to care about, for lack of a better word, because before this, what did we care about? We ain't going to hang out with our high school principal. You know what I mean? We're not going to hang out with our middle school principal, but we can relate. Well, I can relate to Melvin in this case. I thought for a minute you were just showing my old school pictures. And I was a little pissed off there for a second.
We want to thank Richard for sending us his yearbook picture here for us to show senior year.
It wasn't too far. Now, this would have been like 4th grade. Like, I looked like I was an informant for the FBI or something, just in the class. But yeah, not too far off, to be honest with you. Glasses, the hairdo, everything except for the suspenders and tie.
Today they call him Big Richard. Back then is when they called him Little Dick, when he looked just like this.
That was just my grandmother that called me that, but for different reasons.
We got to hear what that sounds like now that you've...
That's a little dick right there. That was about it.
That's perfect. That's all we needed. That's all we needed.
What was it? It was a P3 radio episode where I told Josh that, there was a debate. I remember as a 4-year-old, it was like one of those things that come screaming back to me. As a 4-year-old, I remember my grandmother asking my mom, "When? I thought you had that boy circumcised." And Josh just going, "Yep, your grandmother thought you were all sleeve." So, P3 Radio, you can check that out weekly. Wherever you get your podcasts.
I got my plug ready for the end of the show. So another spoiler. Hey, Richard, just between me and you, Coach BT, and there was a character called Blitz that was on Corey Maclin's wrestling. That would have been a good team there, and we could have done the same angle as Bergstrom and Penrod's doing. I mean, I would have got you over, man. I would have got you over.
You mean you wouldn't have had me job out my first week?
No, I would not. Not at all. So I just want you to know that.
Been great. I appreciate that. I get a lot of crap for the Blitz character.
Love the character. I love that character too. I just never understood why they didn't put you guys over. So
sometimes you got to try things.
I missed it that week. We need to find the clip of that and do a live stream or something. Watching the match, and you kind of telling us about the character, what it should have been, and what they did with it. And
we'd have to,
of course, you'd have to found somewhere else to go, because Corey Maclin wasn't booking Coach BT to do anything.
No, not at all.
We had a couple meetings in the back where his name came up.
You thought you got buried without him. Just imagine if, hey, I got this new character, and then I got this coach that's going to come with me. Well, who is it? Brian Trammell in there. Oh, hell no. Oh, I wish I could play a clip right now of Josh cutting a promo on Brian Trammell as someone else I can't even allude to here.
No, let's not talk about it because he's making a special appearance next 5-minute time limit. So yeah, there we go.
There you go. There's a teaser. All right, so we come back and we see a clip from this week's Owen Hart versus Jerry Lawler match. Let's see this clip real quick, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Flips him over there. Because Owen Hart jumped him before the start of the bell, came from the back of the Coliseum, around the other way, opposite of the dressing room. Oh, boy. Hart with a series of uppercuts on Lawler. Another away on the key. Right hand from Hart. Oh, boy, the stop of Lawler comes down. And Lawler goes to Owen Hart. Lawler with a couple of right hands. And again, he sends Hart down. The king, another away on the rocket. Owen Hart and Lawler. Boy, looking for Hart in there. Hart says all of a sudden, hey, let's be friends. Sticks his hand out. Oh, yeah, Lawler grabs his hand. Touch him up. Oh, and he falls on Owen Hart. Lawler falls on him in 7:29, and Hart will retain, oh, boy, the unified world title if he's able to walk out of here with it, because Lawler is going to work on Hart. Oh, boy, that's 3 paw droppers from the king. Lawler picks him up again. Paw drops on Hart. Oh, that's the way it went.
Now, in the 80s, that many pile drivers from Jerry Lawler would have, been
Killed
the end of
somebody,
Owen
yeah.
Hart's career. You could have never saw him in Memphis again. We'll see here in a moment what the result of that is. It's the what's become the usual result of pile drivers in Memphis now, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, all right, I found this picture and it's been bothering me, and I feel like it's the kind of thing Richard can relate to because we kind of worry about these types of nerdy things that other people wouldn't give a second thought. But let me set this up. Brian may have some insight on this. I don't know. Owen comes in, he wins the unified title. He's wearing that gear that we just saw him wear, the Rocket outfit, which was some of my favorite Owen Hart gear until he got to the black and pink. But I hated this other gimmick we're about to see. So he's wearing that there. He comes to town. He makes his first title defense. He's wearing that same gear. But yet this picture exists, if you're watching the YouTube, of him with the unified title wearing those god-awful high-energy MC Hammer Sabu pants. Where does this picture come from? I've yet to see him wearing that outfit with the unified title.
I know.
All right.
They just took the picture backstage after he got dressed. He's wearing those pants like he would Zubaz. So he's just hanging out backstage. They got the red background, which was that's where the promo pictures were taken. So for the gimmicks table. And I bet this picture was on the gimmicks table, believe it or not.
Okay.
That's my thoughts on it.
So you think he took it specifically for a gimmick table? I was about to say, so you're telling me that Owen Hart rocks these pants to go like travel in?
Yeah, I figured he put them on to go from there to the hotel. That's just kind of stuff that they never wore anything. That was like your what you call it. They also remind me of Coco Ware's pants too, but that looks like
that's where they wore them as partners when they were high.
It looks like he put those on. Take the picture. That red background is. I know that Corny did most of them in red background, and then somebody else after Cornette was taking pictures in USWA. And they used the same background. I mean, is there somebody out there that knows a little bit more about the gimmick photos? Let me know. But that looks like a gimmick picture, a gimmick table picture that was taken specifically for the coffees to put on their table.
I will accept that answer he was wearing it for a gimmick picture. I don't buy into that he left and went out in public wearing those fucking pants. I would like to think Owen Hart had more taste than that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I would bet that he had just got out of his gear and they were like, "We need you to take pictures."
That's possible too. Yeah.
And he was like, "I am not
Damn
putting
it.
no single. So I'll just put the pants back on."
He's like,
Hey,
I got the Aladdin pants over here if you want those.
Interesting enough, that guy took 4 pile drivers. That's the name of the boat Josh is on. Pile driver.
Yep, sure is.
No, my question was, when Lawler pulled that strap down and showed his left nipple, and really freaked out
excited.
Owen. Yeah, like really scared Owen to death. You saw us. Why didn't Lawler ever just start his matches out like that? He was obviously
Ding, ding.
like, "Yeah, there it is," and then
Yep.
he just Goldbergs the shit out of him.
I'm going to give you the same answer my wife gives whenever I ask in movies we watch, and I go, "Why didn't they just do that to start with?" She say, "Because the movie would be 12 minutes."
And the match we went over this last week. This whole match was 7 minutes and 29 seconds. It was every bit just Owen Hart heat. Just a comeback like Lawler's match is always. 7 minutes and 29 seconds for the main event. We talk about it, that they're not doing very good booking, but man, they're not giving, I guess because they just set through a gazillion matches, but still 7 minutes and 29 seconds for the top match. I would have been pissed as a paying customer.
Well, and that wasn't even like this week where they have 19 matches. I mean, I think they only had like 7 last week. So even that
7 minutes and 29 seconds. Jeez.
They probably didn't report on it. Jackie Fargo probably grabbed the mic and talked for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, Pally.
Listen here, Pally. Let me tell you all about the first time I wrestled at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Y'all cool if I take my pants?
1937. Me and Don and just Sonny. I mean, Rough House. All right, so let's hear the promos that came after this match, or at least an abbreviated version of Lawler's promo anyway. But I was excited that we get to hear from Owen this week in an official promo, not just standing at ringside yelling like last week.
Oh, yeah, you hurt me a little bit, but I'm still standing, and I'm still standing proud, and I'm still standing tall, Lawler. And I'll tell you what, there's a new king in town, and that's the King of Hearts, Owen Hart. And Jerry Lawler, I don't know what these people believe in you for, because you're nothing but a coward. I sped right from the airplane. I came running from a taxi, and I ran in the ring because I'm a true champion. I didn't want to be late, and I sped, and I put my belt on the line against you, Jerry Lawler. And you tried to cripple me. What kind of a man are you? What kind of a coward? There's only one real man, and that's me, and that's this man right here, my manager, Bert. And we're #1 in Memphis. You're going down, Lawler, next time. Anything goes. I want a no disqualification match because you want to try to pile drive me and hurt me. Well, I'll tell you something, Lawler. It's going to be me hurting you next time.
So what the deal is, punk? He took 8 of your best. Let's see if you can take 10 of Owen Hart's best, punk.
Bert Prentice was leading Owen Hart on today, King.
Bring it on, Owen Hart. You and Bert Prentice both. I wish they could put both of you in the ring at the same time. Because, Bert Prentice, I am so sick of looking at your big, fat, ugly face that I'm going to stick my fist right down your throat. Let me tell you something. Owen Hart, now you stand out there, and you got that big towel around your neck, and it's looking on that film, I can see you're about 6 inches shorter than you were when that match started. And I ain't through with you yet. Now he comes out here and calls himself the King of Hearts. What is it about the Hart family? What is it about Owen Hart and Bret Hart that makes them want to be like the king? Huh? Well, I'm going to tell you something. Just like I told your brother Bret, there is only one king of wrestling, and you're looking at him right now.
So there we saw Owen rocking the traditional, Memphis towel neck brace that's become standard. I don't understand. We do angles with pile drivers about every 3 to 4 weeks here in Memphis. Could we not just go to CVS and buy a $12 neck brace and just let different people wear it instead of wrapping a fucking towel around their neck and looking like, he got pile driven, according to Bert Prentice, 8 times, and he's wearing a towel around his neck. And Lawler even pointed out, I see you there with that towel around your neck, which I thought was fun. But, good promo there from Owen. I said you missed last week's promo from Jerry Lawler, but actually, if you watch the whole show, Richard, you pretty much saw it again because he pretty much that was just a little clip of it there, but he pretty much rehashed half of last week's promo, just a little less inspired this week than it was last week, but you got the gist of it. There was all the Burger King references and the Whopper and the flame broiled and that whole bit that he trotted out last week that he would use quite a bit in the WWF over time as we moved forward. What did you guys think of these promos post match?
I thought it was good. I liked Owen's use of the King of Hearts because that's going to come back into play later on. Yeah. Knowing Owen's, humor, as you hear about all the ribs he played and stuff, and then seeing him in this towel and the first, the looking like in peril, it really made me laugh when I first saw it. But it was a good promo by Lawler. I know I'm not qualified to speak on this, but what the hell was going on with Lawler's hair? He had that weird widow's peak. I'm about to have some procedure done to clear this up.
That was Superman. That's what he loves to do that. So
okay, I didn't know what was going on with that. It reminded me of when I used to try to comb my bangs down to hide my high hairline. But to each their own. I thought the promo was really good.
I agree 100%. Good promo. This is two best promos was last week and this week of the year for Lawler. It was kind of the same promo, but I thought it was the best promo he's done. I love the idea of him against Owen Hart. I did not remember this, and just excited to see how it ends because I don't have a spoiler for that. So,
thank God. It was fun at the time to know that Lawler's feuding with Brett on WWF TV. He's feuding with Owen on USWA TV and Brett, by association. So things have come a long way. Like I've said a couple times now, we've come a long way from the Mean Mike Miller feud in January and the Harlem Nights and the different lackluster feuds he's had to suffer through to get to the Harts from the WWF, who not past their WWF, but currently huge stars on the WWF. And here they are in Memphis, one of them wearing the unified world title, regardless of what breeches he has on as he does it. So coming up next, I'm not going to show the clip, but it turns out we were kind of perplexed last week, Brian, that Miss Simpson won the mud pit match. And it's like, wow, how in the world did she pull that off? Well, it turns out the way she won the mud pit match was referee Paul Neighbors just shoved Miss Texas into the mud. pretty cut and dry. There was not a lot of speculation there. So we're not going to show that clip, or at least not without Josh being here. But what we are going to show you is this clip of a promo from referee Paul Neighbors.
Oh, good God.
Jackie Fargo did one with no pants, so Paul Neighbors decided to do him one better and do one with no shirt. And then we'll follow that with a word from Miss Texas. So check this out.
Belly aching. All I'm out here is to referee a wrestling match. If they get their pinned shoulders, 1, 2, 3, it's over with, or what happens? All they want to do is start crying. Jerry Lawler, you started crying. You got me in a match. You thought you was going to beat me, but you found out you couldn't. And the same thing goes for you, Danny Davis. You got me in a match. You thought you was going to beat me, and you found out you couldn't. But the most humiliating thing of all, Eddie Marlin, you've got me booked in a match against Miss Texas. That is the most derating thing I have ever heard of. But I am sick and tired of it because all I want to do is referee. Well, there ain't but one way to put a stop to it, and that is to hurt somebody. And I'm sorry, Miss Texas, it's going to start with you. So this week, you're going to get hurt. Do you understand?
Well, that's Paul Neighbors, and here's Miss Texas.
Referee Paul Neighbors, you talking about somebody going to get hurt? You're going to get hurt. You run around saying Jerry Lawler couldn't get it done. Danny Davis couldn't get it done. Well, they couldn't get it done because you ran. But I got news for you. You can't outrun me. And when I catch up with you, you bald-headed weasel, I'm going to knock your brains out.
Bald-headed weasel.
Wow. So, fun stuff there. Let's what was it?
Put your shirt on, is what I yelled at the screen.
So to recap, in consecutive weeks here in the USWA, referee Paul Neighbors has refereed matches against Jerry Lawler, Uncle Danny, and this week he'll be facing Miss Texas. I can only hope at some point they send a WWF referee down here to feud with Paul.
Spoiler. Come on.
Can you pop that picture back up?
Oh, absolutely.
Here's my question. How many scared people. This was the last thing they saw before they were put in the trunk of a car. Like, look at what was he doing with that motor oil behind him?
What is that stuff behind him? Yeah, where the hell
A
is
light
he?
bulb. It just looks like, Paul Neighbor's dungeon of torture.
Serial killer. Yeah.
He's in his garage or something here.
Jesus
There
Christ.
apparently wasn't a clear wall to put it in front of. We didn't have that red backdrop we were talking about for Owen, so he's just in front of his,
It looks like he had an air conditioner, like a wall unit at the top up there, and then they took that out at some point and just put some of that foam boarding in. There's so much in this picture that just screams terror. He was the real master of terror.
Now,
speaking of, get your shirt.
Hey, plug it for us there, BT. There you go. You totally redeemed yourself for the spoilers.
Thank you.
Although I am going to now get a T-shirt on the site that has a picture of BT that just says "the spoiler" on it, but, or just just that hat, maybe just a fedora that says "the spoiler."
What if you get a shirt that has BT on the front? So there's a mask on the back of the shirt, and you turn around and there's a mask there.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So I do, after saying all of that, I do want to mention we have a lot of fun here on the show with all the crazy booking and silly stuff that happens, but we want to send our best out to Paul Neighbors right now, as I know his son has posted on Facebook just recently as we record this that his dad Paul has been going through a lot of health problems. He's currently having some serious pain and issues concerning his neck.
Oh wow.
No doubt related to his years in the wrestling business. So say a prayer, send some positive vibes out, whatever, you believe in towards Paul and his family right now, because he is going through a hard time. And as we like to have fun with this stuff, but in all seriousness, we do wish him and his family the best. And we do feel bad for some of the pain and hard times that these guys have.
And it was probably
the entertainment
because
they provided us.
Miss Texas beat the shit out of him as he was trying to get out of the ring. Did y'all see that? She was kicking him like crazy.
Oh yeah, and Lord knows I've seen him get pile driven more than any referee ever over the years, throughout the years in the USWA. So.
I now feel terrible for calling his basement a dungeon of terror. Now I feel bad, but no, I mean seriously, like
terror?
I got up this morning, and from my little
dungeon of terror,
from my little stint in wrestling, I have trouble getting around, so I can't imagine.
Oh, I can't imagine either. Yeah.
So best wishes and prayers to Paul Neighbors. Hope he kicks out of this and starts feeling better.
I barely took any bumps, and I get around like a 70-year-old man now, so I can only imagine.
My knees hate me, so falling off the ring 100 times. So.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time on your knees to get into the rest of
it. I really did.
Really coming back to haunt
you. Hey, now, come on now.
And with that being said, let's take our last commercial break of the podcast, and then we're going to come back and find out what this was all for. We'll be right back.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Pro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puroresu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
All right. We want to thank WrestleCopia for being a sponsor of the show and for letting us be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. And guys, we're about to talk about what this was all for, but I forgot to show the picture earlier. So if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're not, you really should go check it out. There's a shot of the Camaro that we're going to be wrestling for this weekend, or this Monday night, I should say, on 4th of July weekend, the cap off 4th of July, from Gwatney Chevrolet, proud sponsor of the USWA, and Jerry Lawler himself, who Lawler said he drove around in a Gwatney Chevrolet. So let's take a look at the card rundown right quick, find out what's going to be happening. Like I said, 16 men competing for that Camaro, and we added more matches on top of that. My goodness.
Coming up Monday night, our 4th of July Spectacular. It is a big one now. Opening up the opening bout of the night, our first round matches in our 2-ring 15-match card tournament, with 2 matches going on at the same time. So there'll be 2 separate rings at the Coliseum Monday night. Been a long time since I can remember that. 2 separate rings and 2 matches going on at the same time. 15 matches, 16 wrestlers, and $2 admission for children under 12 years old is all part of our 4th of July Spectacular. First round matches will be Brian Christopher against Tiger Mike Anthony. The legend Tony Falks in the tournament against Randy Rocket. You'll see Scott Taylor against the Master of Terror, and Jeff Gaylord against Principal C.W. Bergstrom. Those are first round matches. Also including Nightmare Danny Davis against the Natural, Bo Alexander. New Jack being against Rex King of Simply Divine. Also Danny Davis, Dutch Mantel. Dutch Mantel being against the A student, Melvin Penrod and Dutch Mantel. And Homeboy of the USWA World Tag Team Champions will be in against Steve Dahl. Those are all first-round matches. Coming up Monday night down at the Mid-South Coliseum, you got 2 rings and a 15-match card tournament for that beautiful 1993 Chevrolet Camaro, all from Gwatney 2 Chevrolet, located on Airways Boulevard. And some wrestler will drive away in that 1993 Chevrolet Camaro. Boy, what a beauty it is, and a nice tournament to open things up Monday night. Then, USWA World Tag Team title match. New Jack and Homeboy, the champions, defending their titles against Principal C.W. Bergstrom and his A student, Melvin Penrod Jr. So it'll be Bergstrom and Penrod Jr. who was out here. And they're challenging New Jack and Homeboy for the World Tag Team Challenge titles in there. Then a special challenge match. Referee Paul Neighbors will be in a single bout. But look at his opponent, Miss Texas. That's right, Miss Texas and referee Paul Neighbors in a special challenge match coming up Monday night. Then, Southern Heavyweight title match when no time limit, no disqualification in this one. Jeff Jarrett puts his hair on the line against the hair of one of Tony Falk's family members. So Tony Falk will be challenging Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett's hair against one of Tony Falk's family members' hair coming up Monday night at the Coliseum. Then, Unified World Heavyweight title match, no time limit, no disqualification, when the Rocket, Owen Hart, who is the current Unified World Champion, will defend his title against Jerry the King Lawler. Big night coming up Monday night.
Whew. It took almost 3 minutes for Corey to run down that card. My goodness.
Yeah, buddy.
So, guys, it's time to answer those all-important questions that I ask every week. So, let's start with the first one. What was your least favorite part of this show?
Oh, the long interviews. That was my thing. I watch a wrestling show for wrestling, and I think we saw like what 3 matches this week. It wasn't a
Yes.
lot of them. It wasn't a lot, and in an hour and 10 minutes, however long it was, that's just not enough action for me, especially as a kid. As a kid, me and Josh have talked about this a lot. I was not as invested in Memphis because I may have had like an ADHD type thing going on because I could not sit through a lot of these interviews as a kid. Like I felt like that's all they did. So sometimes I'd get up and go outside and play, and come back, and there'd be another interview on. So
Yeah.
this week is definitely one of those weeks where it's like, yeah, I'm sick of the interviews. Let's go. Come on, give me some action.
Mine was the whole talk about interviews. There's a whole deal with Tony Falk and that angle with the hair, and he could have been 2 minutes long, but it just kept on and on and on. That was my least favorite part.
I'll agree with that one. I mean, I agree with both sentiments, obviously, but if we're getting specific, I definitely agree with the Tony Falk segment was unnecessary, or at least unnecessarily long. All right, so I'm guessing that this is going to involve Jackie Fargo and his couch. But what was your favorite part of this show?
It actually, for me, was seeing a serious side of Brian Christopher. Because up until now, I want to say this might have been the first. Now, we have seen over the years now that serious, vicious Brian Christopher. Hell, he did it to me in Nashville once, and like he's done it before. But I feel like this might have been the first real time we got such a serious, stiff Brian. I enjoyed watching it. He wasn't comical. He was still funny in his way, but he meant business when he got out there, and you believed him. There was no more joking around, no Miss Simpson, no nothing. He was just out there. He snatched the microphone away, told people to shut up. He was mad, went in there and beat people up. Like it was just, that was my favorite part, was seeing a serious Brian.
My favorite part, Bergstrom and Penrod. Like I said, I went on and on about that, but I really did enjoy it, and looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
I agree with both of those. I enjoyed both those segments, but I do think that, yes, this is one of the first times that Brian Christopher came off dangerous. And if I'm watching this, I'm thinking, oh, shit, I wouldn't want him coming after me this pissed off, But it's also the very first C.W. Bergstrom segment that I've been entertained by since he's been here. Like Richard pointed out, it's been the groan of the week in and week out. As soon as he's on the screen, it's like, oh, we're doing this week. Damn it. And of course, then when you mix in Jeff Gaylord, then it's just, it's freaking hopeless. So then the last question is always, if this was 1993, would today's television have inspired you to go buy a ticket for Monday's card?
You know what the crazy part is? I love Owen Hart. Like, I loved Owen Hart back then as a kid. Like, I remember, before I even knew it was the Blue Blazer, when I was a young kid, like dressing up and wanting to be like the Blue Blazer, stuff like that. Like, I would have wanted to go see Owen. The craziness, like, of what their tournament was with 2 rings and 2, that would have inspired me as a kid too, because like I said, I was kind of ADHD. It would have been cool to kind of see a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I probably would have bought a ticket for this one just to see the wild craziness and everything. And it's on 4th of July weekend. You get fireworks and then you get to go see wrestling. So yeah, I'm definitely going.
I already answered this. I spoiled it, but nothing except for Owen Hart against Lawler's only thing. And the 2 ring thing would have just made me say, "What the fuck?" Maybe I would have been a fan back then, and maybe it's got something to do with all the bullshit I've watched since this time period. But no, that don't interest me at all.
All right, well, it's time now, July 5th, 1993, to head down to Mid-South Coliseum for the 4th of July Spectaculah down there. While it did inspire Richard to buy a ticket, it didn't inspire BT to buy a ticket. It did inspire 1,500 people to pack the Coliseum. I don't know how many of those actually paid, how many of them didn't, but there were 1,500 people in there, according to our records, to see in the opening match Melvin Penrod Jr. defeated Dutch Mantell via forfeit.
Oh.
And we got a little information about that after we finish up the card. In the second match, Brian Christopher beat Mike Anthony. Steve Dahl defeated Homeboy. Rex King defeated New Jack. Nightmare Danny Davis defeated the Natural Bo Alexander. Principal C.W. Bergstrom defeated Jeff Gaylord. Scotty Not Yet Too Hottie Taylor defeated the Master of Terra. Randy Rocket beat Tony Falk via disqualification. Steve Dahl beat Melvin Penrod Jr. by disqualification. Scott Taylor beat C.W. Bergstrom. Uncle Danny defeated Rex King. Brian Christopher defeated Randy Rocket. Uncle Danny defeated Steve Dahl. Brian Christopher defeated Scott Taylor in a fun result in a Battle of the Future Too Cool. And in the tournament finals, your winner of the fancy red Camaro, Nightmare Danny Davis, pinned Brian Christopher to win the tournament.
They made him buy that Camaro. I know it.
If you're watching on the video, you see Brian nodding along to this. Now, I'll give you a little insight, and I didn't want to be a spoiler like some people would be.
My bad.
But back in, I know for a fact, in 1987, there was a Camaro tournament for a fancy brand new 1988 Chevy Camaro. It was blue. I'm sure you guys have probably seen pictures of it online before. And I found it odd as a kid. The winner of that tournament was one half of the tag team, the Nightmares, Danny Davis. And Danny Davis has famously said over the years that he bought that Camaro. Every bit of it was paid with picture money. It was money he made selling gimmicks.
Merch.
And I've also heard him say that he come to love Camaros, and over the years, he bought a couple more. I'm guessing in 1993, Danny Davis decided to buy another Camaro, and that's why, uncharacteristically here, Uncle Danny won this Camaro tournament. I'm guessing this was his newest Camaro that he bought, and it breaks my heart that Josh was not here to be a part of today's show.
I remember the blue one because it used to be parked literally like 50
wow.
yards away from my house
a
lot. So, yeah, I remember the blue one. I don't remember the red one, so that's why I was like, I didn't buy that big Camaro. That's probably what happened. I was like, I knew my grandmother was like, how did he win so many matches in a row?
I know. He won more matches in this one night than he had won the entire year.
Yes, he needed him a good push, so we went to the car lot. Got him a good push, I guess.
You know, and the irony is when I learned later on that Danny had bought that car with, picture money or, merch money. After he won that car, I remember going to like the Lavender Coliseum, and of course, all the guys down there sold pictures, and they would have a table full of pictures. And Danny Davis probably had the most pictures of anybody as far as different poses. And after he won that tournament, of the 14, 15 pictures on his table, 6 of them was him in that Camaro, on the hood of that Camaro, stretched across that Camaro. So it's like, damn, he made the money to buy that Camaro with picture money, and then turned around and sold more pictures with the Camaro to make more picture money to, I guess, maybe buy this one in 93. So that's pretty fun. But we're not done yet. The show's not over. In the next bout, Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr., the straight A student, defeated New Jack and Homeboy to win the USWA Tag Team titles, bringing their title reign to an end after only 1 week as champions. What a shame. Then, in the next match, Miss Texas defeated Paul Neighbors via disqualification.
Fat boy! Fat boy!
All right.
Bald-headed weasel.
You reckon New Jack losing to Melvin was the reason why the mass transit really had such heat with him?
Oh, no.
That's a hot take. Wow, I never thought of that, but you bring up a tremendous point. My goodness.
I knew there was some visceral heat there from somewhere. Maybe he thought it was the same guy.
It's quite possible. Oh my goodness. USWA Southern Heavyweight Dinner Plate title holder Jeff Jarrett defeated Tony Falk, and as a result, Tony Falk's father had his head shaved as well. And in the main event for the USWA Unified World Heavyweight title, Jerry the King Lawler pinned Owen the Rocket Hart with Bert Prentice to win back his Unified Heavyweight Championship. And yeah, so a lot of those matches I read to you took place at the same time in two different rings. And rating some of those, yeah, I'm all right with that. Let's knock two of those out at a time if we can. All these freaking DQs and bullshit. So I ain't mad at that. So a little insight to go back to that. So the first result, and I saw it all across Richard's face when I read it. Melvin Penrod Jr. defeated Dutch Mantell, and then I said by forfeit, and he's like, okay. There it is. So how that happened in the Observer, it said Dutch Mantell was scheduled to start for the USWA on July the 5th, but the morning of, he received phone calls from both Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett telling him that he would not be needed and all of his future dates were canceled. In the arena, they announced Dutch lost his match to Melvin Penrod via forfeit because Lawler was furious at Mantell appearing on the July 3rd edition of the Wrestling Insiders radio show, which does air in Memphis, as Dutch spoke about Brian Christopher being Jerry Lawler's son openly.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Jarrett was also mad about Mantell appearing on the Real Wrestling Hotline with people like Dave, and exclaimed that Dutch was exposing the business by doing it and Mike Tenay's radio show and doing a Ring of Dreams wrestling fantasy camp that apparently took place at the time that I've never heard of. Dave's comments on this was, this to me qualifies Lawler and Jarrett as two of the biggest hypocrites in wrestling, as Lawler has recently done Wade Keller's radio show and has been interviewed in several newsletters, while Jarrett himself was recently interviewed in Keller's Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter and actually was much more open and exposed many more things than Mantell did on the radio show. They just didn't mention Lawler's relationship to Brian Christopher, but they did mention Jarrett's relationship with the WWF, and that he testified on their behalf to state legislatures around the country that pro wrestling was predetermined and just entertainment to get out of paying the athletic commissions around the country. So in his mind, he thinks they're hypocrites, that they've been exposing the business. Also, he says they've exposed the business far worse by Jerry Lawler appearing as a babyface in Memphis and a heel on WWF TV than anything Dutch said on a radio show that was only heard by a small number of people. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, isn't that kind of a little hypocritical, seeing as who Jerry's working for now? Like, I mean, and the fact that they're running heel angles in Memphis, but babyface angles nationally. Like, there has to be something deeper there. You know what I mean?
I think Brian may have touched on it recently when he had that conversation with, what was it, Jason Walker?
Yes,
when he said that the Lawler Brian Christopher thing was such a heavily guarded, sensitive subject that even in the dressing room, people didn't make reference to it. So I
that
feel
was
like
in 93,
at the time,
in 93, yeah.
So I feel like at the time that was like one of the cardinal sins you could commit in Memphis, is like, do not ever anywhere for any reason acknowledge that Brian is Jerry Lawler's son. And it would be a couple more years before that becomes, exposed on television by Paul Heyman, and it just becomes a thing, even though a lot of fans knew, obviously, but it definitely was never publicly confirmed. So, Dutch, longtime Memphis guy. So for them to just call him up and go, you know what, your services will not be needed tonight or again in the future, was a pretty big statement for these guys.
Yeah, that's kind of silly, but everything that you just said, that Dave said, and the conversation we had about the Observer last week, that sounds like that's coming directly from Dutch Mantell. So it's a possibility that Dutch did call Dave and say, well, what about the other stuff that they do? So that's just unusual for me. It surprised me that you said Dutch revealed that, because it was such a kayfabe thing even to the workers, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and they said that radio show did air in Memphis, so I can see where Lawler would be pissed about it. I think it's a bit extreme to just, but I guess that sends a message like, hey, Dutch is a fucking legend around here. If we're going to fire Dutch before he even gets started, what do you think we're going to do to, name your jobber or whoever else could potentially do it? But so before we get out of here, before I forget, once again, Dave Brown is bummed out. Number one, he's bummed out. He was left off the show today. But then when we researched a little more to find out what Dave's really bummed out about, it's this. He should be happy though. He wasn't here for that. That should have made Dave happy. But
that chloroform rag on the top.
Put your shirt on, Paul. Put your shirt on. Jeez,
little something for the ladies there, BT. He was going to try to draw them in for Monday night, just in case they were on the fence. They see this right here, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to go. We got to go see what's up with that."
Jesus Christ!
And he was intimidating Miss Texas to let her know that's what
true.
She was up against.
Bald-headed weasel.
He ain't like Bert Prentice. He's actually in some kind of shape, apparently. But
don't talk.
There
about
you have
Bert.
it. The 4th of July Spectaculah down there.
I was in Bert's book. Did I tell y'all that?
Yes, every time it's come up, you have mentioned that you were mentioned. We haven't alluded to what it was about, and we can't talk about it here.
We can't talk about maybe Patreon.
We can't talk about the sordid, filthy stories that Bert told about him and Brian's times together here on this podcast because it's just not appropriate for family consumption. But yes, join Patreon and get on the hot mics, and I'm sure as soon as this show ends, we'll be having a talk about what Bert Prentice said about BT in his book about their private times together, and I'm sure BT will defend his giving of spoilers here on the show and his new nickname moving forward, which is going to be the Spoiler.
The chapter of that book was My Rest Stop Friend, wasn't it?
Something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
No, it was My Rest Stop Friends. I wasn't the only one.
Gotcha.
Oh, come on.
My Rest Stop Friends featuring Backdoor Brian, I think is what he referred to him as.
My Rest Stop Friends in Low Places.
He called me his backdoor buddy. Come on, guys.
Buddy, yeah.
Get it right.
Jackie Fargo uses the word buddy a lot in the beginning of that one promo. Yeah.
Bathball.
Me
bald-headed weasel.
Me and your daddy were buddies, good buddies. Almost to the point that I'm kind of wondering where he went with that because he says how him and Jerry were big buddies, special buddies, and it's almost like you were my son. And I was like, what? Like, if I'm Jeff, I'm sitting there like, what are you telling me right now? Are you telling me?
It does seem like a proposal of some sort. It's about to happen, doesn't
especially with him being naked. I didn't even notice that.
An indecent proposal, if there ever was one.
Jeff, how long have we known each other, Pally?
I could be your daddy. If you know what I mean.
I wouldn't mind if he called me daddy. Yeah, we forgot to tell you, Richard, last week on the show, Brian mentioned that if you add "if you know what I mean" to pretty much any statement you say, it gives it a terrible implication of something dirty. If you want to try it out, if you can just think of some random statement right now and you want to add that to the end.
Yeah, it's malignant, if you know what I mean.
There you go. See, it works. Brian is 100% true on that one. And another thing that I forgot to include this week, but last week when Lawler was referring to how he's kind of getting a little heelish these days, even in Memphis. He said that he didn't give two hoots about anybody up there in the World Wrestling Federation.
That's right, two hoots.
So then Brian started rating things with hoots after that. And you may be happy to know that he gave P3 Radio 3 hoots in his.
Oh, wait till this week. No spoilers, no spoilers. Come on.
I told him we need to start making that a feature of the show that we just rate everything in hoots.
What's the highest hoot level though? Because a 3
5
might not be
hoots.
good.
5
okay.
hoots.
I was going to say, if it's out of a 100, this is going to look like my spelling test in the 3rd grade. A 3 out of 100.
No, it's a 1 to 5 hoot scale, standard hoot scale for the South. So we learned that last week. So we'll start using that here on the show, the hoots, and we'll also every now and again we'll throw a "if you know what I mean" behind something and see if it always works, or if we find an instance where somehow, some way, it just doesn't make it dirty. But I don't think we're going to find that. I think we could probably take a verse from the Bible and throw that in at the end, and it's probably going to make it dirty. But let's not do that. So anyway, this is the point of the show where we plug. We'll let BT start with what's coming up on stspod.club. What you got going over there, BT?
All right. Shiznit Minute every day, stspod.club. We had 5-minute time limit where you get 5 minutes to talk, and I actually let everyone talk on that one. I did a Conversations 20-minute show with Dustin Starr talking about the WWE ID in the program there. WTF coming up this week. We also take a look at the Hall of Fame, the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame this month coming up. And Lance always does the Record Store Christmas show. And on December the 27th, I will be the guest on Carmela Panfield's Wrestling Radio Relived, and I'll be talking about One and Done. Will I be making an appearance there? We'll talk about it. So I'm excited about coming back to that podcast. I actually helped them get it started, so it's fun to be part of that. And possibly I'll be being there. Well, I will make an appearance with the podcast at One and Done.
Well, Tommy and Doug's going to be there, and they're working on getting me up there. So who knows? Maybe Doug can throw a fireball at you or some shit up there.
Hey, come on now. I tried to smooth that over. Come on.
Do you want Josh to come and take a horrible picture of you guys?
And then Josh is making a horrible picture of us.
Perfect. All right. So, Richard, what went on P3 Radio this week?
So we're starting our Christmas countdown. We always do Christmas music right around there, and we always try to find like funny Christmas songs. So we've started that. We recorded it a week off because of all of the craziness that was going on. So I do remember it was a fun show. I don't remember all the specifics of everything we talked about, but if you want to check it out, you just find this cover art right here.
Richard, you don't remember, but guess what? I do, because I listened to every damn episode of P3 Radio. I gave it this week 4 hoots.
Wow.
4 hoots. It's the podcast, P3 Radio, is that BT and Gene, well, they promote it more than the host promotes, so they never say it. It was this week. It was Tabtacular. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Also, I want you to know this is the kind of podcast where they review videos on an audio podcast, and they never will put the links in the description of their podcast so that people can watch them. They actually did plug USWA Retro Podcast, but it was just like offhanded. That podcast we do with Gene, they don't have no fucking idea how to go to it.
It's more than we usually get. We'll take it.
That's how we lost the hoot.
They shit on AEW and John Moxley. Well, they need to do that. There was an AI version of Dead People. Richard talked about a VHS player. Richard, I don't know if you know this, but that's called a VCR. Possibly because it was an Italian Latin language and you didn't understand it. Richard and Josh made a diss song on Grandma, and I didn't do. Just notice I didn't even do that imitation this week.
Hold on.
They mentioned a very pissed off Arkansasian or something like that. I'm assuming that was me. And by the way, I like that music because Josh liked it. I mean, Josh is my favorite. They had updated news articles from August, and one of the funniest stories ever at the very end. So if you just want to fast forward to the very end, is a car crash scam that Josh did on his ex-wife. Absolutely loved that. I actually did rewind it and listen to it again. It's just so funny. So,
that was good. I do.
There you go.
That.
4 hoots out of 5.
We lost the hoot because of why did we lose the 5th hoot?
For poorly promoting this podcast.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go.
Fine. All right. Well,
so I've said in the past, BT's the only guy I know who can bury your podcast while allegedly promoting the podcast, but he does it very well.
I listen to it every week. What the hell?
And he earned his nickname once again. He gave a spoiler and told people to skip to the end to hear the one thing at the end. So.
And then told them almost everything about it.
And then told them everything that happened. So I don't have to listen this week because now I know everything possibly could ever wonder about
that story, though. You got to listen to that story, Gene. Just fast forward toward it. So funny, and it's just off the cuff too. They're just talking about something. All of a sudden, he starts telling a story about what he did to his ex, and I've got an ex that was just crazy, and I wish I would have wrecked her car. I'll just say that. There you go.
We kind of got into the weeds about like, has the relationship ever ended badly?
Right,
One of those types of things. And I didn't really have a story, seeing as I've been with my wife since junior year. So everything I had was just that stupid, emo kid, experience. But Josh has real life experience.
Oh yeah, this was a good one. Oh, I loved it.
Fun stuff, if you know what I mean.
You want me to tell the story? I'll tell the whole complete story, so no one even has to listen to
BT poorly retell the story.
I feel like BT's true calling is to make those movie trailers where it gives away the whole movie in 2 minutes.
Yeah. I hope he never starts doing a review of the Retro Wrestling Review. God help us. That'll be
Before
terrible.
we begin, Jerry Lawler wins. He wins everything. So let's get started.
Do we really even need to review it? I mean, we know Jerry Lawler's going to win, right? I mean, this nerd shows up and he wins the tag titles in his second match, beats Dutch Mantel. You get the gist of it. So, all right. Well, we want to thank the spoiler himself, BT, for sitting in for Josh. We'll have more instances where Josh and or Richard are going to be in and out over the course of the next few weeks. So I'll let you know as those things come up. I think I've already let you know about the next one, BT, coming up, and we will get you Homeboy BT.
I got Homeboy BT coming on now. Yeah, yo.
You got to get that in now because clearly they are on their way out. I mean, they lost their tournament matches. They lost their tag team titles. I know when New Jack I tell the story of New Jack in that shoot interview saying how Homeboy came about. In that same shoot interview, he told how his demise in the USWA came about. And he said he walked up to ask Lawler about the finish of a match. And Lawler and Jeff Jarrett and somebody are watching out the dressing room door of the match that's in the ring. And it was the mud pit match. He said he said it was a mud pit match. And that as he was about to ask Lawler about the finish to his match, as he walks up, Miss Texas goes in the mud, and Lawler manages to drop an N-word in there. And New Jack hears him.
I never heard him say that. God.
And New Jack hears him, proceeds to ask his question, and walks away. And shortly thereafter, he leaves the USWA, which, this shows you how early it was in his career, because, a couple of years after that, the story would have been like, and I heard Jerry Lawler drop the N-word, so I stabbed him 47 times and left him for dead. But he didn't. He just quit. So anyway, this week here, this may be the complete end of New Jack and Homeboy. I don't know that we see them again after this. I may be wrong. They may be around for one more week to do the loop, because we're a week behind on everything. I really don't know. But anyway, the 1 week reign as tag team champions of New Jack and Homeboy, and now we are in the era of the principal and the straight A student. So we'll see how that story continues to develop. And we'll see you here next week for more the Retro Wrestling USWA podcast. Hey, folks, before we get out of here, I'd just like to take a moment to tell you we appreciate you checking out the podcast. And if you would, do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now, wherever you're watching it. If you'll just take a moment to either subscribe, to rate and review. Let us know what you think. We hope you're liking it. But even if you're not, let us know what you would like to see changed, and we will take that in consideration as we move forward. So we really appreciate any feedback we can get. Also, we just want to say how proud we are to be a part of the WrestleCopia brand of wrestling podcast. Ray Russell brings you something for everyone over at WrestleCopia.com. Check out all the great wrestling podcasts available over there right now. And for all things related to the Retro Wrestling Review podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com and you can find links to everything we have there. Our Facebook, our Twitter /X, our TikTok, our Instagram, our merch store. That's right. We've got shirts. We've got hats. We've got phone cases. We've got all kinds of great stuff, and it's all right there at our store. And you can find a link to it at uswapodcast.com. There's a link to the YouTube channel we're associated with, the Retro Wrestling Archive. You can find all that there. And if you have questions for us, if you saw something on the show that you have a question about or a comment about, if you've got some info to answer a question we have, or you had a question you want us to read on the air, if you want to work out an ad swap, if you want to have any kind of communication with us, you can go and send an email to uswapodcast@outlook.com, and I will get back to you just as quickly as humanly possible. And if you're a fan of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, and if you've heard it, I know you are, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for all things related to Doug's podcast. You can find links to our Facebook page for the show, our Twitter. You can find links to Doug's social media, his Twitter, his Facebook. All that's available there, plus a link to the YouTube channel. And if you have a question for Doug you would like for me to ask him on the air, you can send that question to DougGilbertPodcast@outlook.com, and we will get it added, and it will get answered in a future episode just as quickly as we can work it in. So we appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you here next week for more